What's popping, y'all? Today we're gonna be talking about Johnny Q, a big advocate for on YouTube's and his opinions on in schools. Now, if you already know about the situation in the U.S. with Second Amendment, this is a huge issue, especially as more and more mass unalivings keeps happening, like the one we saw in Kansas City a week ago. And it's just one of those things, those big arguments like should bees in schools, and so he's gonna probably answer that question today. So let's get into it.
You can see here we have a circle graph, and about 54% of this graph, teachers are saying it's less safe that teachers carry.
I honestly agree with it, and just being not only just like public health professional, just looking at data on like, but also too just knowing how people are. It just having a weapon around you doesn't necessarily make you feel much safe. I mean, obviously you can use it for protection and all that, but it can also lead to potential that something else might happen too. And I know life ain't perfect. There's good and bad, there's pros and cons, and like I say, the net cons, if you personally carry your weapon for your personal protection, I think it is fine. I think it's warranted. I carry one around, not like a whole but a baton. But it's one of those things where when you're talking about a whole bunch of kids, a whole bunch of teachers in the classroom, and you're talking about just as wild as schools have been today, that is like the recipe for disaster in my opinion.
Another 20% said more safe, and then 26% said I don't really know. You're saying that you're going to spend more time and money educating yourselves on education and the option to carry a firearm in a school to potentially protect your kids and other kids at the school is like, nah. Say a police department or a good training company would come into the school and they would teach a certain amount of teachers. Even then, they wouldn't want to carry a gun because it's deemed less safe for the kids. Let me tell you, I carry my gun every single day. I am trained. I know.
Okay, good for him being trained. But the thing about being trained and stuff like that too, I know he's about to get into the argument of just like if good training fixes everything. Yes, if you train with the weapon, all this stuff like that too, good for you. I think more people need to take gun safety lessons for their own personal protection, for their own people, for their own, sake. But let's say you get to a situation like Uvalde, or if you get to a situation like, let me look up this guy real quick. Started by following Acorn open fires on unarmed man. Basically, a Florida sheriff's deputy was approaching a patrol vehicle parked on a street under a large tree when acorns fell, apparently hitting both him and the vehicle. What happened next led to the deputy to quit at his apartment, was embroiled in an embarrassing investigation. Believing he had been hit in the torso, Okaloosa County Sheriff Deputy Jesse Hernandez dropped to the ground November 12th in Fort Charles Walton Beach before unloading bullets into the back of the patrol vehicle, inside of which sat an unarmed man with handcuffs. It's like, I'm pretty sure this guy, I don't know how much training you go through as a police officer. It needs to be a lot more than what this guy had got. But it's one of those things where it's like, even if you have trained individuals like in the classroom, like let's say teachers, get training, all this stuff, that is totally okay if they don't want to carry a weapon, because at the end of the day, like, you can have all the training in the world, you can be like G.I. Joe, Mad Max, whatever. You just take that one instance where you just snap, freak out, and just go wild, and you mistake something that's there that isn't there, and you just unload on a class full of students or whatever. Or if you got a lot of teachers who are getting in fearful of these students, it just takes one thing for them to snap and you just unload a clip on the student.
Strictly looking at this graph specifically, that over 1,000 people, men and women, were surveyed, and what was it? Over 54% said that teachers carrying firearms to help students be safe, it would deem it less safe. On in our country, we have school shooters almost every single month. We have legit school shootings at preschools.
You take away the weapons,
universities,
like that's common sense.
Of worship. We need people to step up in this country.
But how's many people gonna step up though? Like how are people gonna step up? Like my issue is, we always say like the what ifs, like, well, are we gonna step up? Are we gonna step up? Like I've known people, let's say, give an example, med students. I know many med students, that love to be take care of patients, love to do this, love to do that. There was an instance at university. There was a person who, passed out, had a heart attack on the floor at our gym. Bunch of med school students, bunch of pre-health students all around, circling around, literally no one wanting to do anything. Everybody was in shock and no one jumped in. There's maybe one or two nursing students that might have jumped in to try to save the person's life until EMT came, and sadly the person passed away. Don't get me wrong, like it's still sad, but people love to say they want to jump in. People say they're trying to jump in. People say they want to do it, but at the end of the day, how many people are actually going to do it? Like, does it warrant enough that we can actually start putting weapons in the civilians' hands to hope they do the right thing, or hopefully they would do the right thing most of the time? And how much will that actually happen?
Because people are going to get guns no matter what. If they want to do something bad and they're barred from doing it, they will find a way. When I was a police officer, let me tell you, people found ways to be bad and mean and still commit crimes, even though they went to jail and prison and were on probation. They still did it because it was who they were. That's what.
Yes, and it's also because they had a lot of access to weapons. So when looking at this, graphic, I know it's like 10 years old, but basically this shows how much, how many weapons come from states that have least restrictive laws or come from like outside their own states. Like if you're looking at Georgia alone, even Puerto Rico, like 349 weapons come from Florida. When you're looking at Florida alone, basically it's getting weapons from Georgia, all the way from Texas. They come across the lines from Alabama to Georgia to South Carolina, North Carolina. More than 2/3 of guns, like I said right here, connected to crimes in New York and New Jersey were brought in from states, mostly from the South, because they have a lot more restrictive or less restrictive gun laws. So his argument saying that, I would say, criminals are going to do, bad things regardless of like, if they're bad or not. They're always gonna have weapons to it. We should like on the bad guys. That is because we don't have a like very comprehensive gun law culture. Like we really restrict sales on gun laws, and it may be too late because we didn't do it back then. I'm gonna link in the chat a video I did on gun control and like a lot of issues like relating to it throughout the years and years and years and decades. Some of like the things are surrounding it, and one of the biggest things I always say it throughout the video is that it's because we didn't do it back then. It's because it's got as bad as now. There's so much weapons proliferated in the public right now. It's to the point where it's just like we can't even get a handle on it, because even if we were to put like a restrictive gun law, because one of the biggest things we didn't restrict was handguns. Like we restrict all these automatic weapons, all these AKs, Uzis, whatever, but we didn't restrict the one weapon that is used in most gun law or gun crimes and stuff. So this is an argument where I'm trying to sit with him right here. I get that, you want to make people feel protected, feel like they have the right to protect themselves. I feel like you should have the right to protect yourselves within given means. I think you should do that. But at the end of the day, it's just like, the reason why it's bad as it is, it's not because we're not arming civilians. It is because we've failed to use restrictive gun laws.
Okay, when I was a police officer, this is wild. Our city voted to have SROs in schools, and they had to vote on it, and it was so close that people didn't want a school resource officer in schools. Like we're talking a police officer.
I have a lot more benefits for SRO. I just feel like we need to be careful on how we treat SROs and what we use them as, because there's issues when you talk about discrimination against black and brown students. There's discrimination against for a number of things on that spectrum. But it's just I think the benefits outweighs of having at least one or two SROs on school. I don't think we should have like a full militarized SRO force. I don't think that should be, or SROs should be basically coming into classroom disputes and all that, unless like it turns absolutely just straight violent. But I feel like SROs is a good medium, and like we shouldn't just keep it to teachers. And I really feel like that's just the bare minimum common sense that we can do, like instead of just giving like civilians like training and stuff and just give them guns and expect things to go well.
Opinion, we're spending millions of dollars on school. High school alone, we're spending millions of dollars on locker rooms, football fields, gear, the students, scholarships. Cool, but all that goes away if someone with a long gun and some
because we need give kids like kids shouldn't be in a crappy school. Now locker rooms and football things like that's different, like those are more luxuries, but I'm like, we're spending $1 million on school scholarships and stuff, make sure schools get what they need. And I get we need to spend more time on like protecting students, faculty, and staff, and creating like effective ways to do that. But we need to come to realize that more weapons on the street is not going to fix a dang thing. Like it's not going to fix things that many people think it would. And another thing I want to bring up that he's trying to make this comparison like, oh, we spending money on this, like when the money can go to do this, when in reality, like we can spend money on anything we want to. Like we have an endless print of money, as well as we can have enough resources and stuff to actually build what we want and create anything we have that we have prioritized at the end of the day. So if we really prioritize, student achievement and stuff, we can spend more money on scholarship, facilities and all that. If we prioritize on safety and all that, we can spend some money on, gun violence prevention, protection, SROs and all that. It's just one of the things is that what do we prioritize as a society? Not just people that just vote. Let's get that straight. I'm talking about policymakers. I'm talking about, legislators. I'm talking about people all across the spectrum. Like, it depends on what we prioritize. And it's just like, let's stop trying to make it a zero-sum game where it's just like, oh, we can only spend money on this or that. We can have both, y'all. We can really have both if we think about it.
And so I would hope in 2024 and beyond, one or two core teachers would want to take this role on and be trained. And
good luck with that, because they don't get paid enough for this stuff. But just going to his thing, I'm going to cut the video right here. I'll have y'all watch the entire video. But here's the thing: he is a gun nut. Like, he basically has a lot of like content on tactical vests, going to SHOT Shows, doing malfunction, demos. Really a gun education channel, which I think we need gun education channel. I'm not trying to roast this guy on that. Another thing too, he also is a former police officer right here. He did quit the police force. I don't know what police force he is, that'll probably be another video for another day. But basically, the thing I want to let y'all know on this is just like, he has much to gain into getting more, weapons, not necessarily into schools, but more so creating, content centered around weapons, because that is his niche, that's his thing, and he might be making money off this channel. I'm not going to verify or confirm whether he get any sponsorships and stuff, but it's just one of the things, like, he is not the best subject matter expert to see like, how do we prevent gun violence, or how do we stop gun violence, or how do we protect kids in the most effective way? Because yes, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be armed. I think you should have the right, if you are responsible, trained, and mentally well, and you pass a mental background test and well as a background test, like, you should have a weapon to protect yourselves. But what I don't believe is that people who main jobs should be just teaching kids, you should take on a secondary role of protecting, no matter how Second Amendment, no matter how patriotic, no matter how altruistic they are and they want to protect their communities. That is not your job. If you want to do that, then you become an SRO, or you get training to do that. Because at the end of the day, there's so many things that could go wrong in the classroom, that to the point where, this thing is so new, this concept is like very new, to the point where it's just like, kid might get unalived from it. And think about it, a lot of laws, especially we talk about traffic laws and stuff, for example, a lot of those laws are made after the fact that some tragic accident happened, and then we want to react to it. We don't think about preventing the measures, or just stuff we don't think about. Let's say they're like 10 years down the line, there's a bunch of rules saying like, you have to have this type of lockup, you have to have this type of security around the gun in the classroom, all that stuff like that too, that wasn't here at the onset of it is right now. That probably is going to be due to like, people got hurt or injured or unalive because of different incidences, and those laws keep getting added and policy keep getting added on and on and on. And I know a lot of people gonna have an argument like, well, there's accident gonna happen, but it's gonna save more lives in the long run. Like, yeah, but like, do you want that kid to be that one accident that might happen that might become a catalyst for like lives getting saved? No, then I think this is a bad idea. I just think we need to have SROs. That's just my personal opinion. I don't think teachers should be doing that. And this is coming from a guy that has several teachers in the family, that their main jobs is to teach, just to educate the kids and guide the children to have a better life. And their job isn't to like take up arms, poo if something was to pop off. That is my thing about this whole situation. So with that being said, that has been Pop Health today. I'm probably gonna go watch the entire video. I know I cut out early. It's more like copyright reasons. I'm not trying to get the channel blocked for any reasons, so I'm just doing that little snippet of it. But if you like to see that, like, subscribe, turn on post notifications, all that wonderful good stuff. Go see the other video I did on Royal Caribbean and the Serenade of Seed and their little world tour they're doing right now, and just a lot of public health issues I addressed in that thing. But other than that, stay warm, stay frosty, depending on what part of the country you're in, and peace out.